Hey guys, Drifter here. Welcome to the third and final part of a series where I've been exploring the decline of the Battle Royale genre and the rise of extraction shooters. Today's episode is, whoops, all extraction shooters, because I wanted to ask the question, why is every game company on the planet suddenly obsessed with extraction shooters? Just off the top of my head, we have Bungie coming out with Marathon, Embark is releasing Arc Raiders soon, Respawn Entertainment just had their extraction mode shut down by EA before it even came to light, but they were working on it. Call of Duty is rumored to be expanding DMZ into its own extraction mode for next year. Battlefield 2042 had an extraction mode. Delta Force has an extraction mode. Helldivers was the most popular game on the planet for a little while. And then there's existing games like Tarkov, Gray Zone Warfare, or Hunt Showdown, or the absolutely fascinating and underrated game Forever Winter. If there was ever a game that was just built different, it was Forever Winter. But seriously, these games are flooding the market and they're increasing in popularity. So much so that we run a chance of repeating the mistakes that we ran into with Battle Royale via market saturation. So today I wanted to ask, why are extraction shooters suddenly so popular? I'm going to try to answer this question from the perspective of gamers and then from the perspective of developers because it lines up quite positively for both of them. So let's start off with gamers, which is most of you watching this video right now. Not all, but most extraction shooters are less competitive than Battle Royale while offering a very similar experience. In Battle Royale, you load into a huge map, load up as much as you can on gear, and try to survive until the very end. Extraction shooters are basically the same in terms of the huge map, the looting and gearing up, and the combat cycles, but with less human enemies, and they let you pick your own extraction or your own ending. Instead of having to wait for the final circle to call it a win, you can optionally leave at a variety of times, depending on the game, of course. And I know you guys are going to grill me in the comments for saying this, but I do believe that extraction shooters are more casual than Battle Royale games these days. And guys, I know that Tarkov and some of these games can get extremely hardcore, and I know that people play them very competitively, but I believe that the average casual gamer experience is a lot less sweaty in an extraction shooter than it is in a Battle Royale. As we talked about in the previous video, a less sweaty Battle Royale is actually what a lot of people are looking for, but they can't get because that genre has already been solved and sorted. Every major Battle Royale innovation has already happened, the meta is largely fixed, and you're not getting that sort of novel experience. So right off the rip, we're getting something like Battle Royale. Big map exploration, loot up, fight whenever you want to, leave whenever you want to. But unlike a modern Battle Royale game, you don't have to practice for 3 weeks and hit Diamond 4 just to be average levels of competitive in the lobby. It's okay to just play these extraction shooters casually. I think that extraction shooters are very rewarding to loot goblins. Loot goblins are a type of player that just really like to collect them all, collect all of everything, all the loot, all the gear, all the weapons, all the grenades, all the collectibles, whatever they can get their hands on. Little TLC hoarders, little pack rats, if you want to call them like that. And some of the more casual players that I played PUBG with were people that didn't play a lot of FPS games or a lot of these sort of more competitive games, and a number of them were often very content to just scavenge the map like it was Animal Crossing, like they're picking up their corn and their harvest and stuff. They just wanted to go kind of play and see what kind of little cute loot they could get, what clothes they could put on and stuff like that. And in a regular Battle Royale game, you can't do that. You have to rapidly loot up, get as much stuff as you can, like a hungry hippo, and prepare to survive for exactly one match. And that's another very sticky point, is at the end of almost every single Battle Royale game, you just are done and you're going to reset and go back to your fist or pistols or nothing the next match. However, an extraction shooter makes that looting process much more rewarding by making it persistent. If you extract with the loot, you get to keep it, you can use it again, you can put it in your storage shed or whatever the game offers you, and it's a part of your persistent identity. Not only that, but it is possible for you to get ultra rare loot in extraction shooters compared to having more common loot tables in Battle Royale. You can take it home for later use, and a huge part of the extraction shooter loop is just building up that inventory of goodies so that when you want to load in, you can just pick your kit and gear and do whatever you want. That process of building up loot is one that a number of gamers find to be incredibly satisfying and fun, at least much more so than grinding Battle Royale over and over and over again to gain arbitrary experience points and level up to unlock probably more character abilities. This is how we all hero shooters in Battle Royale these days. And on the topic of loot, I think that updating the loot tables is far more important for an extraction shooter than it is for a Battle Royale or almost any other game mode. Like, I think one of the most successful thing a Battle Royale game can have is frequent and fun loot table updates. That's just really huge for me. Another way to examine this is through the lens of the bots. The bots on the map are very satisfying for players to fight against. As we've talked about in other videos, I personally do not enjoy fighting AI, but I do understand that many gamers do. Many gamers get just as much fun out of wiping a squad of bots as they do a squad of people. It's like playing a partially single-player game for them. And extraction shooters are more likely to have you fight military grunts and low-level enemies instead of taking down giant monsters like in Monster Hunter, but most players seem to be okay with that. They're perfectly happy killing the grunts. But then again, when you think about it, people played Destiny for years just to go on raids with their friends to hunt down some super difficult AI, which I found a little monotonous. I think the idea is that bots are your easy to normal difficulty enemies, and the human players that you run into on the map are the more challenging opponents, with the exception of some extraction games that have more powerful enemies or mini-bosses to fight. But most players just seem to prefer this combat loop instead of fighting humans over and over again because it's a lot less stressful. I'll also point out that the time commitment for extraction shooters can also be a lot less than that of a Battle Royale. And hold up, I can hear you typing the comments again angrily. Just give me a moment to explain. You're probably going to have to put 40 to 50 hours of practice into any modern Battle Royale game to get good enough to actually have fun in the game, to feel like you're not the one getting picked on, to sort of exist and do your own thing. And this is a pretty huge time commitment that not a lot of people have. And before you're good at a game, you're mostly just going to spend your days getting smashed, which is never fun. However, extraction shooters don't require you to hit any particular skill level to have fun. You can be pretty terrible at the game, load in with some friends, fight the AI, get your shiny purple thing, and extract early for a good time. It can be just that casual if you want it to be, and you're not going to run into human players as often as you would in other games. The ability to extract allows you to choose your own ending time. And if you wanted to get a quick run-in on your lunch break, you could do that and know full well that you can take the first or second extraction beacon or whatever the game has set up. You know you've got like 5, 10, 15, 25-minute intervals. You know how much time you have. You can try to make your run fit that and just sort of do a zero to hero run on your lunch break. This appeals very much so to casual gamers that might only have an hour or two a day to play. They can come home, do a couple of raids or runs with their friends, permanently upgrade their loot collection and their persistent identity, and I think that's a very appealing casual experience. As we talked about in previous videos, one of the most fun things about playing old Battle Royale games was that sensation of my life being important because I progressed so far and I don't want to reset. And that sort of survival horror feeling of when you're alone and you just have to live no matter what and you're outgunned and it's like Arnold being hunted down by the Predator. Well, you don't get that in modern Battle Royales, but you get a lot of it in extraction shooters because when you die, you lose your loot. There's a reason to stay alive. There's a punishment for dying. Things can go wrong when you die. And I think that games need that little bit of extra stress to make them fun. Also, while I think this genre isn't new per se, it's only newly becoming widely popular, and extraction shooters do feel new to a lot of gamers. There's a lot of variety in them, there's still a lot of novelty, there's plenty of opportunity for developers to experiment with new things. So let's now talk about this from a developer perspective. I personally am not a game developer, but I have helped develop games as a consultant for a number of years. So I do have some degree of experience, and I do know a number of people in the industry, but I am extrapolating here. I just hope that I have some basis for making these educated guesses. And my first educated guess as to why developers are so attracted to extraction shooters is that they cost less to maintain, even though they might cost about the same to develop compared to a Battle Royale. So for both Battle Royale and extraction shooters, which are probably the two genres most in competition with each other, for both of these games, you're going to need to develop a huge map, just an enormous area for your players to explore, and you're going to have to develop a loot table with highly variable loot. A system of combat is going to go on top of that. And then finally, this is the sticky point, you're going to need servers to host all of these matches. The price to build the maps and the gear and the mechanics and the graphics and all that is probably about the same between an extraction shooter and a Battle Royale, but the cost to maintain the service has got to be way cheaper than an extraction shooter. An extraction shooter is going to have way less humans connected to the map at any given time, which means much lower bandwidth requirements, which means much less bandwidth expense or hosting expenses. You also don't have to pay for any premium or specialty services to host so many players on one map. Instead, you can host 20 players on a low-end, cheapy server. It'll probably be fine. It can't cost as much as hosting 150. I will admit that the cost in terms of having more instances of the game for an extraction shooter or similar amounts of memory and processing power and electricity cost and all that is probably going to be about the same, but you're just saving a ton in bandwidth cost, just a tremendous amount. You don't have to even invest into, like, for example, Call of Duty Warzone is 150 players. Activision worked really hard and invested a bunch of money into their servers and their bandwidth technology and their variable tick rate and all this very expensive stuff. If you're making an extraction shooter, you just don't have to do any of that. The existing standard technology is probably good enough, and you're going to get by using a fraction of the bandwidth of your competitors. Similarly, balancing for extraction shooters is probably a lot easier than other genres because you don't have to worry about perfect weapon balance between tiers as much as you do in a Battle Royale, because that would make a Battle Royale unfair to just have guns that are supremely more powerful than the others. But in both the fantasy, story, narrative, and goals of an extraction shooter, the whole point is to get better loot and be more powerful than the other turkeys on the map, so you don't have to balance as precisely. And you also have to keep in mind that the majority of your players are going to be facing down against AI instead of other humans, which means the amount of pain they feel if the balance is done wrong is going to be much lesser. It's just a less complex problem to solve, which means less development time, less angry community, less resource expenditures. For example, Call of Duty has entire teams dedicated just to balancing the Warzone loot tables, but a low-cost independent extraction shooter could probably do that with one person because that perfect balance isn't so important to the genre. And then finally, let's talk about profitability, because it's not just that the cost to develop this is lower, but it also creates a fantastic environment to sell microtransactions. Having a black market or aftermarket parts or just some place where people can go sell their gear or buy new gear with either fake digital currency or real money seems much more acceptable in most extraction shooters. You don't often have the opportunity to just outright buy really powerful stuff and just go destroy people, and if you do, you can also run the risk of just losing it. But if you're an adult with a job and you don't have time to grind 50 hours a week, you can at least buy mediocre loot for your runs and be normal when you go out with your friends. And I think this environment makes it a lot easier for developers to put in microtransactions and battle passes. Some developers are even selling bigger loot storage boxes and backpacks and stuff like that. That's whatever. I don't have strong opinions on that. But that's on top of a tremendous amount of cosmetics and limited time events and super rare things to extract with. But all of these make a lot more sense in the context of an extraction shooter, and it's a lot easier to justify the price of anything or selling a particular thing in general or the difference in stats or any of that kind of stuff because it's just such an intensely loot-focused game. Your max level in an extraction shooter is usually just when you're fully kitted, so it makes way more sense to sell some of this stuff and turn some extra profit. So that's my best guess on how the developers are feeling. I want to clarify that these are guesses, opinions, extrapolations, and not the gospel true. but that is my understanding, and I think that's why we're going to have way more extraction shooters in the future, and I'm afraid that in about 5 or 6 years it'll be exactly like Battle Royale, where they get solved, sorted, done, and the community moves on to something else. At the very end of the video, I did want to give my little self a shout out. I don't really use X or whatever's left of Twitter anymore, but I am very active on Blue Sky, so if any of you are on Blue Sky, I got myself linked down there below, so you can come follow me, and very active there, answer most any question, talk pretty often, so hope to see some of you on Blue Sky. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. Drifter out.